What's up, everybody? Welcome in. Oh, look at David's already in the chat. You home from the bar already, or are you watching on your phone at the bar because you don't have anybody to talk to? What's happening? What's up, everybody? Welcome to a D&D Wednesday. Had a bunch of issues, so we're going a little late, but we're here. And like I say all the time, that's what matters. That's what counts. We showed up. Even though, everything breaks and we're annoyed. We're here. A couple things I want to get to today. When I was going through my list of stuff, so I realized we spent all this time making a campaign, and we didn't really talk about how to make your villain in a meaningful way. We kind of just threw a villain in there and built the basis of a storyline. And so I want to go back and kind of just talk about how to build your villain in a way that's meaningful to your party and to your storyline. It's important that the villain both, creates stakes with the players that you have at the table. You want them to feel something for the villain. Doesn't have to be like hate, but you want them to feel something for the villain. And then you also want them to be meaningful to the actual storyline. Because if they're not impacting or moving the storyline further, then they're not, they're replaceable with nothing, right? They're replaceable with this ether that doesn't really actually do anything. And so you have to give the villain a little bit of agency in your plot line as well. And what's nice about that is you get to play that, right? Like you get to play that character. And so it's your opportunity to, create a character and think about what it would want and use that as part of your storyline. So I want to talk a little bit more about that. Of course, we'll do Tome of the GM. We've got a few interesting questions that we pulled up on Reddit that we'll answer when we do Tome. But it's not just that. I want to talk about Hex and Hunter's Mark. I was building a character over the weekend. I put in a Reddit post that I wanted Hex or Hunter's Mark on it. And everybody's just like, that's an awful spell. And it's like, what are you talking about? It is not an awful spell. So I'm going to hit that in Tome of the GM as well as the questions that we have pulled up. And then to close it out, once again, we'll make a character, pull up a character sheet, fill it in, and just kind of give a quick run through on how you do it and what you do. So try to make that as easy as we can. We'll probably be going for a level 2 character for this one. I'm playing in a new campaign. It starts at level 2. This probably won't be the character that I play, but we'll make a character for that campaign and see if we can get it rolling. So that's what's up for a D&D Wednesday. As always, if y'all have anything that you want to talk about or add into our D&D conversation here, feel free. We can always go over anything that you want to ask about or hit on anything that you need. All right, so let's pull up our thing here. Okay. Hair in my mouth. So for our plot line, we were trying to talk about how to build a world and how to make a plot line that fits inside of it comfortably. And those are the big high level things that you should do. But while we were doing that, we went through. So this was the world that we built. There were 2 rival cities, Mistari and Vidin. Mistari is a martial class they're very fit. They put emphasis on, fighting and that kind of thing, competition. It's a very aggressive city. They allow spell casting, but only in the sense of like, if you're a paladin, you have spells that you cast. If you're a monk, you have spells that you cast. But you have to be able to fight too. You have to be able to hold your own. And then as you got older, you were expected to have a ceremony and create your death. And that's why there's this Star Trek Next Generation thing up here. I stole that idea from a Star Trek episode where, once you turn a certain age, so you're not a burden to all the younger people, they celebrate you and the life that you had, and then you're supposed to end it. And so we liked that idea for Mistari being, particularly, I don't know if brutal is the word, but you know what I mean? Just cold when it comes to that. It's considered an honor to end your own life and not be a burden on everybody else. So that was kind of the idea behind Mistari. Vidin was a very magically driven place, and spellcasters are seen as the hierarchy there. Age is a blessing. It gives you more time to study and learn about these spellcasting arts that you have. As a child, your parents can put you into magical academies where everything's paid for. But if you go to the academy and then at a certain age, you have like a magical trial. And if you don't show magical promise, you are then essentially like a butler or slave of the magical class. And so they sell you off to one of the houses, one of the rich houses. And like, if your family knows a rich house, they might, purchase you, and then you have great life. You know what I mean? You have rights and all that kind of stuff. But, there's other situations as well there. And so we didn't want to make Vidin all good and Mistari all bad. So that was kind of the trade-off that we had. The magical trials are optional, but essentially you're committing to either being in the hierarchy and being a magic user or serving them for the rest of your life. And it's a commitment you're making at age like 8. You know what I mean? So that was our idea for the cities. This was the leader of, I already forgot the name, Mistari. This was the leader of Mistari that we had talked about. And this is his first in command. And we real quickly talked about how they affect the storyline, but we didn't really build them as villains. We just kind of said, here is going to be our device as a character for the plot lines that we had. And then we went on to plan session 1 and session 2 with a timeline as well to talk about, overall overarching, how would we build this plan? For me, I would then go back after a couple sessions. So you have your first session, you have your second session, maybe even your third. I would have had maybe one of them make an appearance. So we talked about Opalek, this guy here. We talked about him maybe showing up. In session 1, what we had planned was, as this changing of the guard goes on, these paladins are trying to get out, and our group consisted of a paladin. Maybe our paladin was one of them. Now, without having actual players or an actual backstory from them, I'm just kind of, making up what their backstory might be. But, if you had a paladin who wrote a backstory, you might be able to weave it into something. Lots of times players are looking for ways to connect with the world, even in their backstory. So we had it so the monk was trying to get out after this changing of the guard, and they essentially are raiding this order of paladins. And when they do, they're trying to arrest them and put them into these like gladiatorial games where only the strong survive kind of thing. And they're trying... Anybody who casts spells has to prove their strength by entering these trials. And so the paladins these paladins are particularly peaceful, and so they're trying to get out of the city. And that was kind of what our session 1 was. And so we had talked about Opalek maybe showing up when they break in, the city guard breaks in to arrest all these paladins and try to move them to the gladiatorial games. And we had talked briefly about Miku, who is, the supreme leader, but not in depth at all. And so I wanted to take today to kind of fill them in. And what I'd say to you is, it's important to, more than you would any other character, make your villain feel real. Feel real in the sense that they actually affect the world. Feel real in the sense that there are things about them that you notice about people in everyday life. So if the guy talks with a slur, then you know that guy talks with a slur. If somebody else is a close talker, you know that, right? Like there are mannerisms that stand out in your mind for people, and it's important to build those in for your characters as you continue to make the villain appear to them. You want to make sure that those keep appearing and make it feel real in the sense of their interaction with the villain. So let's build these two out. Let's start with Opalek. First lieutenant, he's going to be kind of the low-level villain in this game. We have him down as just an advisor to Miku, but known for his brutal tactics and lack of compassion. And so that's literally all we have written about him. I have Paladin Oathbreaker. So let's look up Paladin Oathbreaker. And just how do I want to do this? Let's add a window capture. Sorry, a little behind the scenes here. And then okay. So we'll pull this up over top. So Paladin Oathbreaker, let's just look, see what they get, and we can kind of use that to fill in some of the gaps on Opalek. So they have Conjure Undead as a bonus action. They can use their channel divinity to summon undead equal to half their charisma modifier rounded up. So that's interesting. Maybe he only uses that when he has to, because, I mean, if he's a martial class fiend, of course, that's a spell cast that he probably wouldn't use all that often. But maybe that's how he's survived a couple of different things that have happened, and it's kind of like a evil secret kind of thing. Dreadful Aspect. Immediately after you cast Divine Smite, you can expend a use of your channel divinity to channel a burst of magical menace. Each creature within the 30-foot emanation must succeed on a wisdom saving throw or have the frightened condition for a minute. Yeah, so not only is he particularly brutal, but every once in a while, if he just wants to intimidate everybody, he does it with this Dreadful Aspect. I like that a lot. Hellish Rebuke and Witch Bolt. And then level 7, Aura of Hate. When you hit a creature with a melee attack, that attack deals extra necrotic damage equal to your charisma modifier. Okay. So the Oathbreaker Paladin has a lot of undead stuff in it. And I think we should use some of that, but not all of it. So, main advisor to Miku, we're gonna expand on that. Known for his brutal tactics, lack of compassion, and ability to intimidate. Okay, so why is he the main advisor to Miku? He saved Miku. And what do we want to call? So, it's funny. I've gone over my way of naming things before, but in D&D and fantasy in general, it's amazing how many of the names are just two things combined. And like if you're trying to make it sound tough, it's some kind of adjective about breaking and then some kind of adjective to do with fighting. And so like the orcs are the shattered fist, right? Or the serpent fang, or you know what I mean? It's like they put two words together like that. And so, you know, if you're naming like an old battle or something like that, I was thinking I'll go through and call it something like that. So I like the term like sundering, the sundering. And how can, so that's like, because like magic is winning, it's destroying, right? So I like sunder for that. Sundering Shadow. Let's name it the Sundering Shadow. So you save Miku during the Sundering Shadow, and a counterattack on siege forces. That's not how you spell siege. How do you spell siege? Outside of Vidin. So they were part of a siege force. Vidin makes a counterattack, and Miku gets separated. So Miku separated from his forces. He would have surely fallen. And Opalex saves him, but they've never spoken about how. And it turns out it was with magic. Opalek raised undead. Okay, so now both of them have a secret, and that's a valuable thing, right? Hey, these guys aren't even what they say they are, right? All they talk about is hatred for magic, and yet, you know, one saved the other's life with it, and that's why he's in the position that he's in. Um, But as his advisor, he's known for his brutal tactics, lack of compassion, and ability to intimidate. It's not right. Intimidate. I don't know. It's close enough. So now let's come up with some sort of feature about him that's notable. I don't even think we've come up with a race for him yet, which is interesting. Wonder if we can use that in some way. But we'll decide if we want to get cute with that or if we just want to make him a human. But so we need to think of some sort of feature that he has that is something that you would notice about somebody when you meet them. He's particularly intimidating, right? So is it a scar? Is it a stare? So what is it about him that you notice when you meet for the first time? The first thing that comes to me is let's call it a limp. So he has a limp on his left side. It's only a slight limp. But makes his gait noticeable. Which adds to the intimidation. When being held by his guards. And the scene that I'm thinking about playing out there is, if somebody gets captured by his forces, you're sitting there in a chair and his guards are holding you, and you hear in the next room walking in the gate of just real slowly coming, and you're able to feel that his presence is there, that he's coming before you even know that he's in the room, and just that causes fear in you. Mental health guy and Manu both in the chat. What's going on? Good to have you both. Good evening. Yeah, we started a little bit late tonight, Manu, but we are here. Mental health guy, are you going to be playing Fable when it releases? I haven't really looked into Fable at all. It wasn't something that I was into. I don't even know. Let's look it up real quick. Not Fabletics. Oh, did they release official gameplay yesterday too? Wasn't there something though about how Fable keeps saying it's going to release and then doesn't ever release, or am I making that up in my head? But I thought that was a thing. Comes out in 2027, looks like. Yeah, I mean, it looks like the type of game I would play. It's a little whimsical, maybe. Interesting. Okay, so Opalek, this big intimidating figure. He's got Oathbreaker Paladin attributes to help him intimidate. So some of it is magical, but he would never admit to that, right? Like he would just say like he's brutal. I'm picturing him in full plate with, a link-sized sword. Not a berserk-sized sword, but a link-sized sword. Helmet always on. Staring daggers. Okay, so now we've got a secret for him. We've got a reputation for him. And we've got a little bit about how he looks and a unique feature for him. The last thing I would say, and so when I'm coming up with these, I kind of go through like that and just kind of do a base building of it. And then I always say voice, vice, vibe, right? So what is his voice? I want you to be able to hear it when I speak as him, even when I'm like not doing a voice. I am not good at doing voices. David was at my table, and they're like, "No, do voices," and I'm like, "No, man, I am not good at doing voices." But I want to be able to describe the voice and then have you feel that when I'm speaking as him, right? And so for his voice, I'm picturing like a real gravelly, low voice. And when I speak about voice, I'm not just saying sound, not just what does it sound like, but like what's his tone. And so incredibly serious and like there's something always bothering him. And my idea there is like he constantly seems like he's not paying attention to the conversation. You know what I mean? Like he constantly seems like he's thinking about somewhere else. He's thinking about someone else. He's being talked to by somebody else. And so he's talking to you, he's answering you, but he just feels like he's not all there. Is my thought for his voice. His vice. Ooh, that's interesting. What is his vice? And then for vibe, I think we've done enough. Brutal tactics, lack of compassion, ability to intimidate. He's got that limp. The last guy you want to hear in the next room who's about to come in and question you, that kind of thing. So I think we've done plenty for the vibe. So we just need to build in a vice for him. What is the thing that'll get him in trouble? What's the thing that'll get him to do something he won't normally do? And, maybe your players can take advantage of that. Or maybe it's just some kind of storyline or plot device as you move forward. So let's see. For Opalek, what if his vice is that he loves animals? and has a dog that travels around with him. Now you say, that's not a vice. The dog helps with the intimidation, right? So if you're talking vibe, let's call it Rottweiler type. Rot. I don't know how to spell it. Copy and paste is your friend. Okay. So let's picture like a Rottweiler type, foaming at the mouth, always by his side. And he loves the thing, which, we wouldn't view as a bad thing normally. But his vice is that he loves it more than he loves, most people, especially people he doesn't know. And so if you can get to the dog, you can get to him because he's got, a lot of love for it. I like that. And that's a fun thing to do, is to turn, things people wouldn't normally think were vices into vices. Okay, so that's a little bit more about Opelek. I feel like we've got him pretty well planned out. Let's see. Of course, my book is not here. Well, we'll use 2014. So now, right, I've planned it out. All of a sudden, we get into a fight with him, and I don't have it planned out a stat block. Now, you could just build a level 7 paladin, but that doesn't always work so well. It's one of those things where character level doesn't immediately equate to challenge rating. And so you have to make sure that you have something that's strong enough to fight all these guys. We said he had a level 7 aura. Of course, he doesn't have to actually be level 7. That can just be a feature that we give him. But let's just look through 2014. Actually, I feel like this might be better for 2024. And I do have my 24 monster manual. So let's use that. Switching books on you. And this is what's nice about these people, these monsters, quote unquote, that they put in the back, is they've got just like a little index of just stat blocks. Doesn't have to be anything fancy. Don't see anything right in the back. Okay, well, I don't see anything right on the monster list. I would have to look at the 2024 PHB, which of course is in the other room. So maybe I'll grab that in a minute. But I would go and try to find a paladin stat block for 2024. So let's go. Let's show you here. So a site that I like to use is called Kobold Fight Club. And it's just koboldplus.com or .club. Koboldplus.club. Make sure I get that right. And just see if there's any. No, see, there's. Yeah, there's no immediate stat block for it. That's interesting. Okay. All right, so maybe you do have to make a stat block specifically for him. but that's something that we can do easily. And then you just want to go to one of the like online converters and see if you could convert it to make sure that it's strong enough. Okay, before we get into Miku here, let's get caught up with Manu. In my campaign, I want to set a system like to the fear of the person who plays the character in the party. I don't know if you know Cthulhu. What I want to do is for that person changes something of his characteristics because of the fear of that person. And another thing, the body of the villain are sealed outside, are sealed the souls of the gods he devoured. They still have the characteristics, but not their powers. All right, so I think you're talking about your specific villain here. And that, because he has killed and devoured the gods, was your premise, I believe. And so your thought is that he holds on to some of the characteristics of that person, but not any of the powers. The problem is you're going to run into having too many devoured. You know what I mean? If you do it that way. I think it might be better to do the reverse. Is give him one of the powers of each of the gods he devours. And so that way, you know, when he throws a lightning bolt, you know, like, well, that's because he ate Zeus, you know, that kind of thing. But yeah, then it would make sense to have the gods that he devoured and maybe have them as like undead or incorporeal. And so they look like themselves, but maybe not completely, right? Like if they're undead, maybe they're eaten, or if they're incorporeal, like they look like themselves, but they're ghosts. And then they don't have any of the powers, but you could use those. You would assume that they would be vengeful, and then you could use those as guides for your players to figure out, you know, what they need to do next. But yeah, like I said, that's, you know. So that's the thing. So you could, Manu says, I don't know the powers of the gods in the D&D universe. That's the problem. So the Greek pantheon, the Norse pantheon, and the Roman pantheon are all considered D&D gods. And so if you want, the pantheon that had been in your world could just be the Greek pantheon. For the D&D pantheons of gods, the Greyhawks or the Faerunes or whoever, those gods don't have like a power. They have like beliefs, but they don't have power. So like nobody's hurling lightning bolts, right? It's not, they don't interact like that. They're gods, they can just make stuff happen. Now some of them are like God of the Storm, right? And so if you're a Tempest god, then sure, you know, maybe he's the one that throws lightning bolts, but they're more like patrons of stuff. And so when he devours them, you can just look up what they are a patron god of and then use that as flavor for whatever spell he has now because he devoured them. So if he devours the god of the beastlands or of beasts, you know, then maybe he's got Hunter's Mark or something like that, you know. Okay, so we've spent some time on the first lieutenant, Opalek. Voice Vice Vibe, He's got a secret. I think it's pretty well developed. I'll have to go through and look and see what I want to do for a stat block for him. I feel like I have seen a stat block for an Oathbreaker Paladin, but I cannot find a quick reference either online or in my book, so we'll have to figure out what we would do for a stat block for him. For Miku, so he's a barbarian, recently claimed the throne, has ordered that spellcasters take part in a trial by combat to remove the weak, arresting spellcasters and putting them in one-on-one trials, need to win 5 to stay in the city, children are being sent to military schools and being trained. That all is what he has done, but that doesn't necessarily say anything about him. So, what else can we say about him? Of course, he's athletic and good looking. Let's make him kind of a heel to Opalek. So Opalek is, with a limp and a scar and walks around with a dog in full plate armor. Miku, on the other hand, he's the guy that you would expect as the politician, right? Athletic, good looking. He's a Barbo, so no armor. Which enhances his good looks and visibility. Right? Like when he goes out and walks around the town, he isn't under, some heavy plate armor. He's there. You can look him in the eye. You can wave at him. And so it makes him more of a politician. Do we want him carrying around some big great axe? I feel like I don't want him carrying like the standard barbarian weapon. Right? We want to make him stand out a little bit. So, is it a glaive? Is it a hammer? Okay, so I'm picturing like a warhammer. And actually, do you know who I'm picturing? So as I'm visualizing, and this is what I would do, right? I would take this and then run with it a little bit and try to find pictures that I thought fit as we get into gameplay and maybe show them directly to the group so they would then relate as well. Now, I wouldn't show them a picture of another character, right? Because then immediately he takes on all the attributes of the character that you show them. But so just so you know what I'm picturing in my head, again, I wouldn't show this to my players. I'm picturing Jace from Arcane, right? He doesn't have to wear any armor. I don't like the suit he has on, right? I'm picturing, he's probably bare-chested. Maybe he's got like a cloak on, but he's not wearing a shirt or anything like that. And he just walks around with this gigantic hammer, but he's a good-looking dude. And it just feels more accessible because he's not like behind armor and everything, right? So that's what I'm picturing in my mind. And I would try to find like a barbarian Warhammer picture on like DeviantArt or something like that. Um, Warhammer, cloak, hood, shirtless, maybe some like I don't want to call them medals, but like, you know, like ropes tied on his arm to show military might. So military insignia tied on bands as his arms. Right? So that's it for the look. I'm also going to put up here well spoken. You know, when you think barbarian, you think grunty and annoying. But I think I want to play more into the rage aspect of the barbarian than I want to, um, you know, make him just dumb and grunty, right? So maybe he's like a really well spoken person, but it's like it's kind of like a Hulk situation, right? When he's Banner, he's fine and can communicate, but when he turns into his rage monster, there's no communicating with him. Yeah, I don't know. So Manu said, "Oh, he's literally watching Arcane right now, dude. It's good. It's a good one. I've rewatched it a few times, um, and I was never a League of Legends guy, but I just the story's good. I also don't like steampunk stuff normally, and there's a heavy steampunk theme in that, and I still really liked it. So, um, something similar to Hades mixed with eldritch horror, bloody horror, and insanity for your guy. I don't know where you're going there. In terms of like what he looks like, maybe is what you're saying. Because when you say Hades, I'm picturing the like Hercules Hades with like blue flames on his head, and you could make that look really badass, right? Like, I don't say that as a knock. Um, the cartoon version isn't particularly scary, but if you were to make that into like a realistic type of art, it would definitely be freaky. And then God Emperor of Mankind. Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I want Miku to feel like he was chosen by the gods. I think I want him to feel like it was completely merit based, right? Like he's such a badass. Like so I say here he took the throne by force. I don't know that I want the gods interfering, you know? Like I think I want him to think of himself as a god and not necessarily like he was chosen or something like that. And so there's this air of invulnerability about him. Generally level headed, but when he is in a rage, can't be reasoned with. Right? So now we've got a look for him. We have a secret down here. Ooh, we have a secret down here for him. Um, so that's good. It can be the secret that ties the two of them together, and it's a secret that is for both of them, but also is vulnerable to both of them, right? Because one, uh, Opalek was casting magic, and that's how they saved his life. And two, Miku was going to lose; he was going to die. And so there are two things that could really tarnish their reputation inside of the city that he now is preaching, like only the strong survive. You know what I mean? Um, and I kind of want, when I introduce him to the party, I kind of want him to be reasonable. You know what I mean? I'm going to spend probably the first 5 to 10 sessions painting him as a monster. And then when you go talk to him, I want him to be likable. You know what I mean? I want him to be likable and reasonable and have that kind of conflict within the party of like, wait, is this guy actually okay? You know what I mean? We saw who his friend was. We see the things that he's doing, but maybe he's just miscast, you know? Maybe he's actually needs something else here. So what's his voice? And again, that doesn't just mean how his voice sounds, but like his tone. And I kind of want it to be like warm. Warm, thoughtful, and inviting. So much so that you worry about the sincerity. Like, I want him to be so warm and inviting when you talk to him that you're like, is this guy, being like pulling my chain a little bit? Is he just doing this just to do this? And make you question a little bit. But otherwise, I think he's just got a real strong politician leadership voice. Need to find a vice for him. And then, like I said, with Opalek, I think we've done pretty well putting together his vibe. Kind of golden child, good old boy. For his vibe. The kind of person that just makes you hate yourself and hate life. So we need to come up with a vice for him. What's his vice? Now with Opalek, everything was so dark and angry about him that I wanted to kind of take the edge off a little bit with the vice and make it maybe a little bit surprising that he loves animals, right? Loyal creatures, blah, 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 all that, stuff that they normally say. But Miku's the opposite, right? He's the golden child. He's good looking. He's athletic. He has kind of that vibe to him. And so I feel like his vice needs to be really dark. So and we also need like a mannerism for Miku as well. So what's his vice? Let's say so I mean, like, he's particularly brutal. He's a barbarian, and like, he kills people with his bare hands. So maybe let's say his vice is that he's a sadist. You know what I mean? Like, and he enjoys seeing others in pain, both psychological and physical. That's why he started the games. The trials for spellcasters. Right? So like Opalek's like, well, we should just kick him out or kill him. And he's like, no, man, let's see these guys fight to the death instead, because I want to sit there and watch it. And so maybe that's his vice. Like, he is this guy who seems very normal and well-to-do and so on and so forth, but his vice is that, I mean, he's brutal. He really is. And it's part of why him and Opalek get along so well, right? Like, Opalek is going to do the torturing, and Miku likes to watch the torturing. And so then what's the only thing we need now is a mannerism for Miku. What's his thing? You know, I think of Brad Pitt in Ocean's 11 here, right? And I don't even know if you know this. You might have watched the movie for a long time and loved it and never realized it, but like, he's eating in every scene. In every scene, Brad Pitt is eating in Ocean's 11. So what's the mannerism that you notice every time that you're around? Elegant. I see that from Manu. I like that. So likes the finer things, which is strange for a barbarian, but like, always inviting for tea. So like, maybe his thing is that like, anytime somebody's there, like he actually like invite, oh, would you like to take tea with me? You know what I mean? And it like sets you off a little bit, because you're like, I know you crush somebody with that giant warhammer, you know, like you turn you oh god, who is that comedian? Gallagher. You Gallaghered somebody's head with that giant warhammer, and now you're like, would you like to have a spot of tea? You know what I mean? And kind of makes it this weird juxtaposition of like this really elegant. Yeah, maybe it's not even a facade. Maybe he does enjoy the finer things. It's just he's also a sicko, you know? You said for a barbarian, elegant manners goes very in contrast, but makes it funner. Yeah. So, and like, you don't even have to do it for the meme, right? Like, you could do it in actuality. We already said he's kind of a golden boy. Maybe he like grew up in a really well-to-do family and appreciates the finer things in life. And, you know, I was picturing his robe being like, not like a ratty one, but like being like a war-torn barbarian one, but maybe it's not. Maybe it's like a really nice, elegant robe with like white with gold on it, and you know, open chested, and he's got a big hood, but it's all very elegant looking, and he's very like model like, and then it plays into what we were saying about him being well spoken when he's not in a rage, but then when he's in a barbarian rage or his anger gets the best of him, he's just an absolute animal. Like, you cannot reason with him. So there you go, right? So I think that's a great way to put a little juxtaposition in there. And, you know, you don't want to do it too much, but you also don't want to follow all the tropes all the time, right? So I think that's really good for our main villain. And our first lieutenant, because our main villain is a little bit of a juxtaposition, and our first lieutenant is like very on brand. You know what I mean? Very typical evil bad guy thing. Manu. Maybe he's a psychopath who acts very elegantly despite his barbarian nature. Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying. Like, I think he tries to hide that barbarian nature, appreciates the finer things in life. If you know any sadists in real life, you know, maybe he's like that, right? Like, he's a dominant, he's a master. He wants things done a specific way. And then when something sets him off and he gets angry about it and turns rage on, like, he turns into just absolutely brutal. And then Opalek is your much more like tropey, evil bad guy. But I think that'll create this strife in the party where it's like, you know, can Miku be reasoned with? You don't reason with Opalek. He's gonna murder. He's gonna torture. He's gonna kill. He's a bad guy, and maybe the only thing that redeems him is how much he loves animals. Miku, he's well spoken. He likes elegant things. Like, maybe you can reason with him, and it'll create that little bit of squeeze, that little bit of twist inside the party of like, are we doing the right thing, or is there something, you know, different that we should be doing here? And then, so here's the last thing, and this is the thing that I always try to make sure I think about when I'm creating a villain. The term that got said to me when I was doing a workshop that always stuck with me is, a villain is always justified in their own mind. So you're going to watch something that they're doing, and you're going to say, that's barbaric, that's terrible, right? But what makes a good villain is that there is a justification in their head for what they're doing, no matter how barbaric it is. And like an easy example of that is somebody's daughter died to X, right? And so he's just killing everybody until he kills the person who did that to his daughter, right? And in his mind, he's justified because he's like, you killed my daughter. And it's like, yeah, but that doesn't have to do with the 10,000 people you just murdered. You know what I mean? And so from the outside, it looks like a guy who just murdered 10,000 people. And of course he has no soul. Of course he doesn't care. Of course, you know what I mean? But in actuality, he does. And what he's doing in his mind is justified. So what is that reason for Miku? What is the thing that he's doing and what makes him justified? And, you know, essentially eradicating spellcasters. I mean, maybe it's we've gotten too soft thing. We've got to get back to our roots. Maybe there's an actual reason that he hates spellcasters specifically. And so, okay, so what if a spellcaster wasn't strong enough to save somebody that he loved, right? Because why would he care how strong a spellcaster is? And I don't mean like how strong of a spellcaster, I mean how physically strong, right? Like he's putting them through these trials. And yes, it's because he's a sadist and he likes to see them suffer, but also, you know, is there a reason that he thinks you can't just be a spellcaster? You also need to be physically strong. So I kind of like that. Let's chase that a little bit. Okay, so, and I would flesh this all the way out probably. So his justification is a spellcaster whose physical strength failed them couldn't save something. Couldn't save his family, couldn't save his parents. And what was the failure? Those are the things that you'd have to work out. Now, you don't have to have this for the first game, right? It's good if you do, because it helps you paint the picture of the villain, but you don't have to have it for the first game because you can just paint him as evil. And then over the course of the storyline, you want to try to develop him a little bit more and a little bit more. And that's why it's interesting, the juxtaposition we were talking about with Manu, all of his elegance and so on and so forth, it adds a side to him, adds a dimension to him. And then you find out that, he suffered this tragedy, and that's why he wants his spellcasters to be physically strong as well as mentally strong, right? And that adds another dimension, adds another side to him. So you want to keep adding these sides to them as it goes on, but you don't need to do it all at once. You can slow play how you put that out there. So, if I'm 2 sessions in, I'm probably looking at the justification saying like, okay, it's something to do with that. And I'll have to flesh that out. And maybe over the course of the game, your players will give it to you. Or it will reveal itself as you start to go through and actually play the game. And then you can work things from your table into the backstory because you left yourself that little bit of room, for that justification in the end. So I probably wouldn't get to the story of why he did that or his justification for a while. So I would just kind of leave that as like, okay, it's something to do with that, and let's see if we can uncover it at the table together. So, I feel like this is pretty good, right? Like, this is how you develop your villains. We've got a couple sides for each of them, and you've given them a little bit of depth in life, and now you just have to make sure that you emotionally connect your table to the villains. And you can do that using their backstory that we wrote, but you just have to make sure that there's that connection there, because if there's not, then they don't care, and you don't want them not caring about your villain, right? They got to feel something about the villain, whether they feel bad for him, whether they feel angry about him, whether they love him. They got to feel something for the villain. The old saying, the opposite of love isn't hate. The opposite of love is apathy, right? And so you just need to make sure that they feel some sort of emotion. And the easiest emotion to get out of somebody is anger. But, it doesn't have to be anger, right? It can be sorrow. It can be love. It can be something else. So, yeah. Let's see what else Manu said here. All elegant and then annihilates without thinking about the consequences. Yeah, it's a rage, right? And I like using that term. He goes blank in the mind, and he turns animalistic and into a rage. And it's not just when he's fighting, right? It's when he gets angry about something that he's talking reasonably about, and then all of a sudden just snaps. You know what I mean? I would love to see him like returning all elegant and highness acting after breaking the spine of somebody. Yeah, no, I think if you were like making a Game of Thrones HBO type show, like you would have him go into a rage and like he takes the hammer and he crushes somebody's spine and with a bloody warhammer and hands all bloody, and like he then walks over to like a very elegant set table and places the warhammer, maybe takes a towel, wipes the blood off the warhammer, and places it upside down. And you see him then go wash his hands, right? And you're building this like real juxtaposition. And then he sits down and he goes, "I'm sorry, I had to deal with that," and takes a sip of his tea. And it's just like, oh my God, the dude's a psychopath. You know what I mean? Absolutely. It would absolutely be, you would definitely build in a scene like that. And it's something that you could build into your game as well. Something that is important to mention with villains is don't just leave them as a thing out in the ether, right? Like, make sure you have the players interact with the villain multiple times throughout your campaign. You just have to make sure that they can't just kill him real quick. You know what I mean? Like, they can't just outright kill him. And whatever is stopping them from doing that, be it guards or, their fear of if they're capable, you know what I mean? Like that kind of thing. But you should have them interact several times throughout the campaign. And yeah, I mean, to build a scene like that into one of your games, I absolutely think would go a long way into trying to paint the picture of this villain that we've created. Okay, so we'll keep working on it as we go through D&D Wednesdays, of course, and keep developing different parts of it. I'm going to have a whole campaign written and nobody to play it with. So, and then, we'll just keep tweaking and hopefully it'll give the DMs out there like Manu who are trying to think of their own things, little keys or tricks or ways to think about their villains too. When we come back, Tome of the GM, we will go through questions. I got some pulled up on Reddit. Of course, we welcome your questions as well. If you want to drop some in the chat, feel free. If not, we'll just go through the ones that we've got on Reddit. And then if we have time, which we're already an hour and a half in, so we may not have time. But if we have time, we'll create another character as well, just so there is a little bit of a guide for people on the internet about how to step-by-step make a character. Manu, if you have a question, drop it in the chat. Of course, we'll talk about it. But we will take a break. We'll run some pre-roll, or we'll run some ads to burn the pre-roll, and we'll be back in, take 5, something like that. Maybe. Maybe we won't. Maybe we'll just keep going. Why is this not working? All right, everybody, welcome back. D&D Wednesday. I don't have my sound muted, so here we are, Okay, let's get this, make sure it's running. And we're having some technical difficulties, but I think the stream has been okay. So let's see. Okay. Cool. I think everything's all right. If there's something messed up with the stream, just drop it in chat. But I think everything's pretty solid. Welcome back to a D&D Wednesday. Gonna do some Tome of the GM here. If you've liked the advice so far, of course, we always appreciate a like, a follow, a subscribe, a subscription, whatever. I don't know if you're on YouTube or Twitch or wherever, but feel free to drop us a follow or a like or a subscribe, and it goes a long way. It helps out a lot. So let's do a little Tome of the GM. Of course, here's where we answer questions from DMs either in the chat or questions that we find on Reddit as well. Our guy Manu has been in the chat and wanted to ask a question about his campaign. And essentially, it's Manu, you dropped a lot in here about what you want to do. There's no real finite question, though. So tell me what your exact question is. I read kind of through what you had sent, and the only thing I'd say about what you'd sent is careful taking away a lot of agency. You're using a lot of devices in a lot of different ways to take decision making away from your players. And it's okay to do that at the very beginning, and it's okay to do that every once in a while when there's something that you really want to drop in that you want to make sure that gets into the storyline. But don't forget that you're writing a story with them. This is not just your story. And so I know you're really excited about your villain and the plot line that you have with it, but you also need to make sure that you allow them to make some decisions as well, right? Like, you're not just writing a book. And so what he had written was that there was a dream sequence, essentially, and a call board then that only had one call board node on it, and then his villain drops out right in front of the party. And like each of those things, there's no decision for the party to make. So if you're thinking about it in terms of a video game, the way to think about it is like, that's one long cutscene. And it doesn't mean video games don't have cutscenes that are really important and totally viable. But I think you just want to be careful how much of that you take away from the players, right? So they would need some guidance if you were to do it without those devices. But if you have a call board and there's only one sheet on the call board, they don't have any choices there. It's the one thing. And who's to say that if you don't put something intriguing on the call board amongst a bunch of, not very intriguing things, that they wouldn't still pick whatever it is that you want them to pick. And so, like, one has the symbol of your villain written in blood, right? And the other notes on the call board are, my kitten's in a tree, and, like, I wouldn't make them that inconsequential, but you know what I mean, right? Like, the other ones are really basic, but then there's just this one that, like, is written in blood and has the symbol of that you've seen a few times now, and like it then they're like, ooh, we want to follow that. You know what I mean? Instead of you saying, well, this is the only choice. This is the only thing you have to follow. And so it's important to let your players make decisions, but it's also important to let your that your players make decisions that like are easy to make, I guess is how I want to say it. Like you can make the decisions obvious, but you know, allowing them to make decisions is going to make them feel like they're going through. So if you got a specific question, feel free to drop it in. I read through your little thing there, so I can try to answer something more specifically about it, but that would be if I was just looking at it, that would be my general thought on it. Okay, let's get this fired up. Okay, the first thing I want to talk about, because I'm angry about it in a playful way, is Hunter's Mark and Hex. So I posted a character question on Reddit, not the one that we have here, just saying that I would like Hex or Hunter's Mark on my character, and was met with a deluge of comments that said those spells are awful, they're not even that good, don't worry about them, blah blah blah. And like, we have to sit down and have a talk. One, min-maxers, stay away from my character. Right? Like, if I say I want that on my character, I want it on my character. And like, the min-maxers, what makes me angry about it is those spells are very good at low levels. They're not as good as some other spells, but they're very good at low levels. And your argument is that they don't scale well, and so you'll feel like you wasted something. Well, not if I get not if 5 of the 10 levels that I'm playing the campaign, it's a very useful thing for me. So you can have things that are incredibly useful for a portion of the campaign that are worth taking because they're useful for that maybe don't scale well. 2, 1d6 on an attack is a big addition. There's entire features in classes that give you 1d6 on an attack. And so for me, if my character was a cleric, for me as a cleric to be able to roll the same amount of damage as a rogue who's doing sneak attack, but I don't have to have advantage or anything like that. I just have to cast this spell, which, oh, by the way, doesn't take a spell slot for me when I only have 3 spell slots to begin with. Yes, that's a very powerful device. And if you're playing at a table where you just get to fight and then long rest and then fight and then long rest, and your DM doesn't put any strain on you or challenge you, then yeah, it might not seem worth it to take it because you have your 3 spell slots each time you fight, and you can concentrate on bless and do 2 heals and you're good. But if you're having 3 or 4 fights between long rests, then it makes it hard to justify not thinking that having 2 extra spell slots, in the case of a ranger, having 2 extra spell slots to cast favored enemy, essentially Hunter's Mark, and still having your regular spell slots alongside of that, you're not comparing Hunter's Mark to Bless, because if I'm casting Bless as a low level character, it's eating a spell slot of mine and my concentration. Hunter's Mark, if I had it, or Hex, is not eating a spell slot of mine. It's just eating my concentration. So you shouldn't be comparing it to Bless. You should be comparing it to other things that I could get with my racial feature. Well, really now it's background. With my background or a feat, that's what you should be comparing it to. Is it worth taking the feat for that? And then the last thing I have to say about it is you are really unimaginative if the only way that you think Hex helps you at higher levels is if you have multiple weapon attacks. Because the answer I got from everybody was, well, you're a cleric, you only get 1 attack, so it's not going to scale. If you think that's the only way that spell helps you, then I can't help you. Okay? What I can say is There's 2 ways that you can use that spell at high levels that can help a lot. Disadvantage on a saving throw? If I can hex somebody and make sure that they have disadvantage every time I hit them with a spell, are you kidding? That's a huge help. And it doesn't matter if it's at level 20. There's no saving throw for hex. So if I'm fighting the biggest, baddest boss in the game and I give him disadvantage on the saving throws that I am specifically going after him with, that's a huge advantage. And then the other thing is, and this is what I think I'm going to end up building, don't tell me there's not a spell attack build here where I fire, and my idea is Scorching Ray, but I fire multiple bolts of something, Scorching Ray, Ice Knife, whatever, and I'm making attack rolls, which means that on each one of those, I'm getting an extra 1d6. And so if I upcast the Scorching Ray and I have 5 rays, right? Each of them doing 2d6 damage. Now, if I apply Hex, because each of those is a separate attack roll, I get a d6 on each of them if I hit. So now I'm hurling 5 rays at 3d6, not 5 rays at 2d6, which means that I can hit them with 15d6 damage instead of 10d6. And if you don't feel like that's an advantage at higher levels, you're crazy. You're crazy. So people who want to say that Hunter's Mark and Hex are not a good spell, you could not be more wrong. They're great spells. You need to find ways to use them. They have utility at higher levels. And at lower levels, to be able to walk up to somebody and hit them with your weapon and do 1d8 plus 1d6 plus your spell plus your weapon modifier is a huge help. You can end fights way faster. If you're fighting something with 10 hit points, it can be a 1 hit and you're done. So I think I'm going to make another post on Reddit just to fight with people about that, because it's absurd. Okay. So this Reddit post says, what's an unpopular hill you'll die on? I have little ones. I don't have as many big ones. At least maybe I just don't realize that they're unpopular. But it literally says, please don't say something like potions should be bonus actions, like that's some kind of edgy take. Something like tiefling shouldn't be a core race, that'll get you downvoted to the 9 hells, right? The ones that I can think of are all very potion should be bonus action-y. You shouldn't use dexterity as a tiebreaker in your initiative, because your initiative bonus already includes your dexterity bonus. And so you need to pick another stat to use if you're doing a tiebreak. 2 people both rolled, 15. Well, your dexterity bonus is already baked into that. It's in your initiative bonus. So why would I use dex to break the tie? So I use int, but you could use wisdom or whatever. But those are the type of things I think about for me. But I did want to go in on a couple here. I like this one a lot from Warmill. People should know the rules before breaking and changing the rules. Whew, man, don't change something you don't understand why it's there in the first place. I can't tell you, and this is advice to young DMs. I can't tell you how many young DMs want to just say yes to something ridiculous. Oh, well, instead of a cat familiar, can I have a bear familiar? No, you can't have a bear familiar. The reason you can't have a bear familiar is because bears are a lot stronger than cats. And so if you're in a fight and you have the bear stat block, it's much more helpful to you than the cat stat block would be. And so there's subclasses built around you having a bear. It's called Beastmaster. Go play one if you want to have a bear. No, but I want to be a warlock, but I want a bear. I'm like, no, that's not how that works. So, my advice to young DMs is, yes, D&D misses. All TTRPGs will print something and it won't be balanced, it won't be right. But for the most part, they play test these things. They plan these things. They spend years writing them because it's balanced. And so, yes, there are going to be things that are better and things that are worse inside of the balance. But you got to be really careful if you're constantly breaking or changing things. Because if you do that, you're going to end up with an unbalanced game. And then you're going to have to break something else to fix your unbalanced game. And you don't want to do that. I promise you. Let's see if we can make that a little bigger. So totally agree with Warmill on that one. Okay, what else did I like here? Oh yeah, this was great. Okay, it makes sense for well-defended castles, fortresses, vaults, etc. to have defenses against magic users who can turn invisible, teleport, and polymorph. These defenses shouldn't be 100% foolproof, but in a world where an assassin can turn into a mouse, you bet your ass that whoever is in charge of security would try to protect their king from that. Yeah, I think it's a great point. I think too much when we think about high fantasy and TTRPG games, we think about medieval times as our setting. And you change the people for magic, but you don't change the places for magic. And so even if it's a low magic world, you know, the king that has a wizard is going to put some kind of magical fortification on his walls so you can't pass through stone. You know what I mean? And it's a great point. So you need to be thinking about, like, what would those protections be that these castles, fortresses, king's rooms, vaults, etc., what would they have to protect against simple things? Druids turning into animals, wizards turning invisible, pass through stone. You know, a lot of the characters have flight options now. So, like, just like you would think about what kind of dragon defenses a castle has, I also think you would think about what kind of flying defenses a castle has. And it might change the way completely the castle looks, you know? And then this one. Everyone can play TTRPGs, but TTRPGs are not for everyone. It's very true. Very, very true. Everybody's welcome. Everybody can play TTRPGs. I encourage everybody to try it. It does not mean that everybody's good at it. And I'd love to tell you that, like, oh, everybody can learn. But some people may not have the imagination for it. Some people don't have the want for it. Like, it takes a lot of work to imagine the world, even just as a player, right? Like, you have to sit there and take what the DM is giving you and build a picture in your head of what's happening. So you have things that you can do inside of that world. So not everybody wants to put in that much effort. Not everybody can. Not everybody's that imaginative. And so the DM can help with that in a lot of ways, but I do think it's a good point. TTRPGs, everybody is welcome. Everybody can come play. I would suggest everybody tries it. But if you say they're not for me, that's fine. You're probably right. Okay, let's move on. This one, let's give credit to who put that up. Radical Pterodactyl on RD&D for that one. It was a good question. RD&D, Meteor 23. A player wants to have an electrified body. How would I rule it? Sounds dangerous to me, but let's go through it. One of my players is doing a human rager that suffered some Frankensteining during a job and wanted to have an electrical current in his body. His idea was being able to do lightning damage at the cost of not being able to touch other people unless using equipment that could cancel it out. Oh, so he wants an advantage with no disadvantage. Shocking. Do you guys think changing the damage he does to lightning would be too disruptive? How would you even do that when he uses mostly a short bow? Is adding a d4 or d6 of damage to all of his attacks too broken for a campaign that goes from levels 1 to 12? I also feel like the social penalty is the same as nothing. Yes. He would just be wearing gloves at all times to neutralize it. So it comes to the question, if you were to rule out some sort of mechanical benefit and punishment balance for this, how would you do it? So, you know, the first thing I'd say is it sounds a little main character syndrome-y. Hey, I want something that's not in the game and want it to make me more powerful than other people, at the table. And that's tough, man, because as soon as you give that to one person, then you have to find ways to make other people feel special too. This is something that's not in the game. But at the same time, you want to reward creativity, you want to reward imagination. And so I think there's ways that you can do it inside of the game rules. And it's important to stay inside of the game rules so other people have the same opportunity to build things into their character as he does into his. So, that's kind of what I say in the first paragraph, is just make sure it's not main character syndrome and you don't then have to do all this stuff for all the other players. Mechanically, what I'd say is if you give him just the free D4 or D6, it's too much. What you can do is build that mechanic around something that's already in the game. We just talked about it, Hex and Hunter's Mark. And all you have to say is, okay, so yes, you have an electrical current in your body. When you choose to focus it, you essentially cast Hex. That's all. And then you make him take a feat or a race that has Hex as one free cast. So you could be a Hexblood, you can do Shadowmoor Hexer, and that way he gets an extra 1d6 on all his attacks. You say like, okay, you casting that is you focusing your energy to focus that lightning into your attack. And so then you get an extra 1d6 on all your attacks that is lightning damage every time you hit it. But then you have to move that focus to somebody else if you want to do that, right? So it would work the same way as Hex. And you could even give them the disadvantage on a saving throw, but just make it only Dex. And the reason that they have disadvantage on dexterity saving throws is because they're electrified, so they're tensed up. You know what I mean? And there you go. You have the Hex spell. It's built in. And mechanically it fits into the game. You're not breaking anything. But if you were to give him the free D6 of lightning damage, and then he takes Hex on top of it, and then he takes sneak attack on top of it, like all of a sudden he's got, he's rolling 10d6 and it's outside of the mechanics of the game. So that would be how, if you want to give him extra damage on an attack, that would be how I would do it to make sure it fits within the constraints of the game. In terms of damage, I see Manu commented, technically become a flesh construct. Yeah, you can kind of run with that theory. That's what I did here. So I would say that lightning spells heal him, right? Like if Frankenstein was suffering, you hit him with another jolt of lightning, he's good. But it also, mechanically, they make healing spells the way they make healing spells for a reason, right? Like they're meant to be more effective because they're for healing. So he's really going to put himself at a detriment for this because there's only so many lightning spells and he's going to have to find them. And then he's going to have to make sure that he and somebody else has access to them. So if he goes down, he can take lightning damage as a heal, quote unquote. So I would say lightning spells heal him. Healing spells do damage. If he's some sort of undead construct, right? Healing spells maybe do damage to him. But of course, it wouldn't be something that an enemy would know immediately. It would just be in time. I would give them resistance to necromancy and immunity to lightning damage, right? So they can't take damage from a lightning spell. They can only heal from it. You'd have to do that, right? But then give them resistance to necromancy damage. And then I would give them a couple of vulnerabilities to play off of that, right? If you see something that has a resistance to one thing, generally it has a vulnerability to something else, I would choose cold and force damage. If they are some sort of construct running through lightning, so on and so forth, it's that cold damage turns into water, right? If you've ever played Baldur's Gate 3, you know that. And so I would give them vulnerability to, like, if you're wet and you get electrocuted, you take extra damage. So I would give them vulnerability to cold, and then I'd give them vulnerability to force because their body is already straining, trying to hold the electricity in. If you get hit with force damage, yeah, you're vulnerable to it. So And then I said, mostly there are things that you can reflavor in the game to make this fit without just giving them free damage. So that's my advice there. A perpetual machine made of flesh. Yeah, I mean, I think that's fair to say. You don't want to give too many advantages without no disadvantages. And I think there's ways to build all that into the mechanics that are already in the game. Okay. This one from DM Academy, Mr. Lonely 10. Well, I know you're lonely, but I'm here for you, Mr. Lonely. Maintaining interests. I've been DMing my homebrew campaign for about 7 months now, and it's going pretty well. This was my first time DMing, so there were unexpected things and moments. I wish I did better, but for the most part, I was happy. Then the last session, I really disliked how I planned it and how it went, and I can feel myself losing interest in the whole game. Now I struggle to plan or think about the campaign at all, and only think about making different worlds and campaigns. The party is still very much in the middle of the story and still like a lot of the pieces, but it's just less fun now. Is this a common thing, or am I just overreacting from a bad session? Incredibly common thing. Literally, I would say every DM goes through what I call DM burnout. A lot of people call it DM burnout. So I'd say a couple things about it. And the first thing I say here is the 7-year itch. You're in a campaign that you've been in for a while. The most fun that we have as DMs is creating something new. We want to get excited about our villain. We want to write a new plot line. We want to build a new world for them to be in. And when they're kind of slogging through the one that you already had, and they're playing through stuff for the first time that you thought about 8 months ago, you get a little bored. It happens. That's totally normal. If you want to throw a twist in there for yourself, or, ask your players what they want in upcoming, just to kind of give you something from left field that you're not used to. That's totally fair. If you take a suggestion from one of your players about something that they want, maybe it's more fun for you because it's new for you. You know what I mean? So that would be my suggestion in terms of trying to continue the storyline and reinvigorate your excitement about it. Generally, I'd say if it's the bad campaign that's making you dwell, listen, no DM is perfect. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to mess a lot of stuff up. It's okay. We all do at the table. It's the number one thing I tell new DMs. Like, don't get caught cyclically thinking about what you could have done better. Take your wins, make sure you learn from the losses, and then let them go. We all have moments at the table that we regret. If it's something that you need to address with the table, address it. But otherwise, you can't dwell on mistakes that you make. But overall, DM burnout is very real. It happens to everybody, and it happens generally around this time. Generally, when you're like 8 months to a year in is when the DM is just sick of DMing. They're sick of this campaign. They're sick of DMing. You don't want to think about it. And sometimes you just go into a session without prepping at all. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's understandable that you lose your fire. Do not feel bad about it. What I would say is ask somebody at your table to DM. A one-shot, a 3-session campaign, something real short. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't have to be, hey, we're abandoning this campaign, but maybe you just need a couple months off, And especially when you're with a group that plays really frequently. So like if we're talking like every other week or more, if you're with a group that plays that much, yeah, man, sometimes you just need a couple months off. And sometimes that comes as a blessing in disguise because your players can't get together, there's scheduling conflicts or something like that. But for the most part, it's okay to just say it to them. It's okay, like, I'm burnt out. I'd really like to be a player, or can we take a couple months off and then come back and try to get your fire back that way. But it's a good opportunity for somebody who's never DM'd before to run a one-shot or run a 3-session campaign. And that way they get a little practice DMing and you get a break for a little bit. And like, I don't know, very normal. I wouldn't worry about it. that you're feeling that way about your campaign in the slightest. Okay, last one here. Also from DM Academy. It's Cream Egg 333. Thanks for the question, Cream Egg. It's is a 6-player party too large? No, but that's kind of the cap. So my friends and I have decided to start playing DnD, and as we have all been interested for a while, I am the DM, as no one else was up for it, and I don't mind the challenge. And the Stormwreck Isle campaign is our introduction. Originally, I was going to have 3 players, but due to other friends wanting to join, now we are at 6, with them playing a rogue, ranger, wizard, warlock, and 2 have yet to decide. The Stormwreck Isle booklet says that 4 players is recommended, 5 can work, but might be a little easy. I eventually would like to do homebrew stuff, but don't want to mess up the balancing, ideally, as I am a complete beginner and might mess it up. Is 6 people too many for a beginner DM to handle? Should I encourage the undecided players to play specific roles? And if so, what should those be? And should I change encounters to add a challenge or just leave the campaign as it is? Also, any general beginner's tips would be appreciated. Well, we've gone over beginner tips a lot of times, but for this answer, first of all, 4 beginner, 6 may be too much. But if you're up to the challenge, you can handle 6 people. I have played tables with 7. I didn't like it. It was very difficult to GM. They had somebody come in who was an 8th who they wanted to play. And I finally, and like the 8th was kind of guest starring. They showed up every once in a while. And I finally had to say, like, yeah, I'm sorry. I know that we want to make sure this is available to everybody and they're your friends, but 8 is too many. We can't do it. So 6, I think, is a good number for a campaign. You ideally like to have like 5 or 4, but I think you can survive with 6 as long as you have a place to play that can accommodate 6 people, 7 around a table. No need to encourage specific roles. Just make sure that you're considering what the roles are when you're planning for the session. So if you're running a module, you should be reading through your module and knowing what the encounters are coming up. And if you have 5 frontline fighters and it's some kind of range thing, you have to build something to make sure that they have something to do during the fight. You know what I mean? Just make sure it's not totally topsy-turvy. But for the most part, it won't be. You'll be fine. In terms of making them more challenging, I would say run them as is and then change them during the encounter. So if you're fighting a pack of goblins and they seem to be wrecking 4 goblins, send in 2 more. They were in the trees scouting out, and here they come running back. Okay. You can also mess with hit points, right? Like, if all your guys are getting 1 shot, then, give them an extra 5 hit points each. And you don't want to do it to screw over your players, right? Like, that's vengeful DMing. But if you need to make it a little bit more challenging, generally that's okay to do. And it's fine for you to just say, like, oh, it says here he's got 11 hit points, but I just had 2 of my guys get 1-shotted, and so we're going to make it 15 now. You know what I mean? For the general tips that I gave them specifically on this post, and I've talked a lot about general tips here, but this was more general tips for having a large table. Combat is going to move slow, especially with new players. It's going to be a huge problem. So I'd say maybe get a player to help you track initiative. And even if you want, I don't like doing this, but if you want to track hit points, not only amongst the monsters, but amongst the party as well, you can get help with that if you need it. But I would tell you, I like to keep my hit points behind my own screen. And I would suggest that for you too. I'd still do this, and the last table I played at, I was DMing for 3. But I do this every time. When you're telling somebody that they're up, tell them who the next person up is. So, hey, Steve, you're up now. Judy, you're next. Make sure you're thinking about what you want to do. And say that every time. Because you don't want the first time that they think about what they do on their turn to be when it's their turn. It takes way too long. They should have a plan in their head, and unless something drastic happens, they should be able to very quickly move through their turn because they've been thinking about it the whole time. And that's something that you have to teach to younger players. I would make sure that you're teaching that to them. Another thing that I found helpful is have them elect a captain, president, whatever they want to call it. It doesn't matter. But a spokesperson for the table. And there's a couple things that you can do with that. One, the spokesperson can take the lead on them making decisions. We're going to go here. We're going to talk to blah. Do we want to take the prisoner? Do we want to, free the goblin? Whatever. Let them take the lead on that, and then you can be looking at your module and getting comfortable with what the next thing is. You also are going to have a split table at times. You have 6 players, so you could have 3 on one side and 3 on the other. And you need them to assign somebody that has the tie-breaking vote. And the captain would be that person. So if it's 3 and 3 and there needs to be a tie-breaking vote, it's whatever the captain decides, whatever his vote was, her vote was, that's what you end up going with. So it's helpful to have a captain. And then you can also look at the captain and say, hey, time's up. I need a decision. And they'll feel the weight of that, trust me. So I think electing a captain at the table is really important. And then one of the last things I said here is, talk to them in the session 0. And if you don't do a session 0 because it's a starter set, talk to them before the first game. And just say, guys, it's a big table. And things that I like to address in my session 0 is like, if you have trouble paying attention for that long, that's okay. But make sure you bring something to do at the table that's not going to distract the table. So if you want to sit at the table and draw while we play, totally fine. If you want to make friendship bracelets, that could be a little distracting, but just make sure you're doing it in a non-distracting way. If you need to get up and walk away, try to make sure that you're in a seat that doesn't make everybody get up, and try not to do that unless you really need to. Or we say, hey, let's take 5. And with the bigger table, one of my biggest problems was table talk. So I'm trying to say something as a GM and 2 of my players are talking over here. And it's like, guys, even if it's not for you, it makes it hard for the other people to pay attention when you guys are joking down there. And so these are all things that you can say to them before they become a problem. And so that way nobody feels targeted. It's not like you're making fun of somebody or angry at somebody for what they did. It's just saying it's a lot easier when you hold down the table talk. Please try to hold down the table talk. And then, of course, like I just said, make sure you're making fast decisions and know what you're doing in combat, right? So if we're making a role play decision, decide what you want to do and move on. All 6 people are going to want their say, so let them have their say, but then make sure that you make a decision quickly and move on. And in combat, know what you want to do before it's your turn. You should not be thinking about it for the first time when your turn starts. It's important that everybody's involved, and that's kind of the main thing that gets lost at a big table is there'll be a quiet person there, and they'll just sit there quietly. And if the DM doesn't engage them or make them feel empowered to be engaged, you can run into a problem where they're not having very much fun at all because they are the 6th of 6 to talk. And so these things are things that you can do to make sure everybody gets a fair turn. And then you as a DM, you got to kind of figure out who are my talkers and who are the people who are a little bit more quiet and I need to engage with to make sure that they're involved in the game. And then the last thing I said is study the encounters. It's the most important thing. It's why I do homebrew, because if I build it myself, I know the encounter very well. Study the encounters, trust your gut, remember fun comes first, and you'll do great. People freak out about their first time DMing, and it's really not that big of a deal. You can do it, I promise you. Okay, let's take another little break here. We'll burn the pre-roll, and when we come back, we'll at least talk about building another character. Maybe we won't go through a full build, or maybe a fast version of it, because I don't know that we really have time to build a full character, but we can do our best. So that was Tome of the GM. Thank you very much, everybody, for watching. If you are on YouTube or Twitch, make sure you give us a follow, a like, a subscribe, or a subscription on Twitch if you want to, would be great. But those things help the channel a lot. And so if you take this and tell other people, hey, there's some good GM advice on Tome of the GM, then that's a huge help to us, and we appreciate it. So thank you, everybody, for watching Tome of the GM. And for everybody who's sticking with us on the stream, we will be right back. All right, everybody, welcome back. Wanted to do a quick little character build here. What's up, Manu? Again, I heard often that there was not enough content of people just creating characters. And so it was hard for people who were new to the game to create their first character because they didn't have any kind of tutorial or anything to help them or anything like that. So I love to build characters real quick on here. And yeah, just kind of show how to do it. So, what do you say we just roll a little bit for it? All right, let's figure out what class we're making. 5th class. Okay, so we're making a druid. Let's do it. Okay. So, we'll be doing a point buy for this one. You get 27 points. You start out at 8 for each ability score. And then every number of that is a certain point value, right? So let's just go down here, fill in 8s. For the most part, it's 1-to-1 until you get up into the much higher numbers, and then it costs extra points. The highest that you can buy is a 15. And so with a druid, our main score that we're going to want is wisdom. And so we're going to just put that at 15 right now. And I know that that costs 9 points. But the way that you can figure it out is everything up to 13 is 1-to-1. So to go from 8 to 5 from 8 to 13 is 5 points. And then everything above 13 is worth 2 points. So to go to 14 is 2 points, and to go to 15 is 2 points. And so that's how you get to 9. That's explained in the front of the player's handbook. Whatever edition you have, they have the point buy table on there and how much it costs. But just the real basics of it is you get to 8 for free. From 8 to 13, everything costs 1 point. Every increase in ability score costs 1 point. And from 13 to 15, which is as high as you can go, they cost 2 points. So I've used 9 of my points already just putting into wisdom, right? What else would we want? So, druids are full casters. Druids are can turn into animals. We could make that our main feature, or that can be like a side feature. They could also turn into like starry forms, all things that they can do. So let's first figure out what kind of druid we want to build. In 2024, right now, there's only 4 subclasses, so I'm just going to roll a die here. And I got Circle of the Land. So I believe Circle of the Hand is like a land is like a spellcaster. Okay, cool. So I get to pick my spells that I get that are extra based on what type of land I'm from. And that's fun. Now, I wouldn't get this until level 3, and we're only building a level 1 character, but it's good to think about where you want to head and how you want to get there. Okay, so it looks like we've got a little bit of AoE damage that we can do at level 3 as well. And then natural recovery. And generally, if I'm planning out a class, I only plan out until around level 6. Now, you'll have players who power game who plan all 20 levels and when they're going to take them. I think you can get into a campaign and then all of a sudden something changes and you're like, yeah, but I really want to do this. So I don't normally waste my time planning all 20 levels. But it's fair to say, like, hey, until I get to 6, this is kind of the direction that I want to go. So to read what you have at your level 6 subclass thing, also helpful. So we're going to say that I wanted to play a druid, more of a spellcaster, and I'm going to take it to level 6. So that lets me have a extra spell slot back, essentially. So we want to build a spellcaster druid, which means that we're only going to be using our animal forms for if we need temporary hit points. And so you don't, in 2024, get the same big pool that you used to, for those of you that know the 2014 Druid. But you do still get extra temporary hit points. And so we would certainly be thinking about that if we needed it for that. And then the other reason we're going to use our animal forms is for utility. Do I need to turn into a mouse and sneak in somewhere? Or a cat? And I can sit and listen to a whole conversation that, King has because I'm just a mouse in the corner. And so there are lots of ways to use the utility of turning into beasts while still being a full spellcaster when you're a druid. So I know a lot of people here are going to take this. This spell list is great. Arid Land, Circle of the Land Druid. Blur is great. Burning Hands is great. Firebolt is great. Fireball is great. But since everybody probably builds that on here, I'm going to pick a different one. I like this one. This is a good look as well. Ray of Frost, Hold Person, Fog Cloud, and Sleet Storm is a nice little put together list there for Polar Land. I think I might go temperate here. Misty Step, Shocking Grass, Sleep, and Lightning Bolt. I like the Misty Step. And then Tropical Land is Acid Splash, Ray of Sickness, Web, and Stinking Cloud. So let's go Temperate Land, Druid. And again, I'm not going to get that till level 3, but I know I'm building my character knowing that these are the things that I'm going to get. So I'm going to get the Shocking Grass cantrip, and I'm going to get Misty Step as well. Building this as a caster, Misty Step is great. It's my safety button, right? I'm out of there, and I get it starting at level 3, which is terrific. That's the first level that you can get it for anybody. It's a level 2 spell. And you can, I think, take feats and stuff that maybe you could get. Well, maybe not with Origin feats now. There are feats that have Misty Step available to you. But you probably won't get them at low levels. They probably wouldn't be Origin feats, I'm saying. And then you have races that give you Misty Step or something similar as well. If it gives you the spell Misty Step, you won't get it till level 5. And I think there's Elf, one of the Elf sub-races do that. But there's similar abilities. So I know Cloud Giant is one of them. Goliath, and then of the Cloud Giant background. And twice per day, number of times equal to your proficiency bonus, but at low levels that'll be twice. Twice per day you can essentially Misty Step. It's not the spell though. So the advantage to having the spell is that however many spell slots I have, I can keep casting it. If it's only an ability that I get from a race, I get it earlier, but I can only do it a number of times per day equal to my proficiency bonus. So it's a little bit of a trade-off. You can decide which one you like. So I'm going to be aiming Temperate Land here. It means my best cantrip is going to be within melee range, and Lightning Bolt's going to be my spell that I'm kind of building around. So can I find some way to maximize lightning damage being a Temperate Land caster for Circle of the Land, right? So what I know is, and this is how you build, character builds, right? So what I know is in 2014 that there's a cleric where you can maximize your lightning damage. So if we're going to be a full caster anyway, do we want to dip into cleric and maybe do that as well? So it's not in 2024. So there you go. So Tempest Cleric is in 2014. It's not in 2024. You would have to dip 3 levels to get it, even if you were, playing the 2014 rules. It says your subclass you don't get till level 3 now. You could check with your DM and see if they would give it to you at level 1, like you used to be able to do at 2014, but that's really powerful, and it's why they took it away. So, okay, so for level 1, I've got Spellcasting, Druidic, and Primal Order. For Druidic, it's essentially a language that Druids know. Others can't decipher it without magic. You also always have Speak with Animals prepared. So we'll put Druidic on our sheet. And I don't like using the spellcasting sheet until you get to a level where you're a high-level spellcaster. I don't really think that you need it. So I like to use this side slot to put all my spells in this features and traits here, and then build stuff into this section if I need more space. So Speak with Animal. And I put AP next to it, always prepared. I also would put page number that it is in the book next to it. So I would go look in the player's handbook, figure out what page number it is, and put it right there next to it. Okay. Primal Order. You've dedicated yourself to a primal order of your choice. Choose one of the following sacred roles. Warden, trade for battle. You gain proficiency with martial weapons and medium armor. But we already said we think we're going to go spellcast and we're going to go Circle of the Land. So let's skip that and let's take Magician. You learn 1 extra cantrip from the Druid spell list. In addition, your mystical connection to nature gives you a bonus to Arcana and Nature checks. The bonus equals your Wisdom modifier, minimum bonus of +1. Okay. So essentially those are, well, you should get that anyway, but maybe you double it. That's interesting how that's worded. Because you would get your wisdom bonus on it anyway. But let's just... Oh, you're adding your intelligence. I get you. Okay, so instead of adding intelligence to Arcana and Nature, we're going to add our wisdom bonus to it, which we'll get to +3. So Arcana, just for now, we'll do the full accounting later. +3 and Nature. +3. Okay, and then we just need to remember that we get 1 extra cantrip when we go through our spellcasting. So here's spellcasting, 2 cantrips of your choice. We're going to get a third. And then prepared spells and spell slots we get from our table. Real easy. So as you can see, we've got 2 spell slots. So what I like to do here is go And this is just at the beginning, right? So now I've got these two little circles. I'll use them as boxes and check them off when I have cast a spell of that level. Right now I only have 2 level 1 spell slots to start off with. I do have Speak with Animals always prepared, right? So that's a spell that I don't have to take. I also am going to add in here cantrips. So I get to know 3 cantrips. And let's go to the Druid spell list. And it all depends on what's important to you about creating your character. If you're trying to optimize it, I would probably go do backgrounds before you do your spells. But if you're trying to make it as easy on yourself as you can do spells first and just kind of go straight down the list. So, 4 spells. Guidance is a really good cantrip. Message is a really good cantrip. Produce Flame is a good cantrip. Shillelagh is a great cantrip, but it's for melee damage. Spare the Dying's good. Starry Wisp is good. Thorn Whip is good. So let's decide what we want. We're going to be a spellcaster. I think we want Thorn Whip because Thorn Whip has this extra thing. So you create a vine-like whip, lashes out towards a creature within range. Make a melee spell attack against the target on a hit. It takes 1d6 piercing damage. If it's large or smaller, you can pull it up to 10 feet closer to you. We're going to also have Shocking Grasp when we get to level 3, which is another melee cantrip. So if we take Thorn Whip, we can pull them closer to us, and then next turn we can try to Shocking Grasp as we're trying to make the things we choose work together. So Thorn Whip's a good one there. Let's take Thorn Whip. Then we probably want a ranged cantrip spell attack, and then we want one that's utility is generally how I do it. So Spare the Dying for utility, Guidance for utility, Mending for utility, Resistance for utility. Those would be the ones that I would be thinking about. But I think we're going to want Produce Flame because it's kind of a crossover of utility and damage. You create a flame in your hand and then you can throw it as an attack if you'd like. So that way you can not only create light if you need to create light somewhere, but you can throw it and do damage as well. So we're going to take Produce Flame because it's kind of a both. And then for our last one, got to decide what's important to you, right? So Message is good for groups that like sneaking around. You can send a message to somebody. Guidance is good for if you feel like you need help in role play. It's considered probably the best of any of these. But, you have to have a DM that allows you to use it often. What else? Spare the Dying. If you run out of spell slots, that's a good way to save somebody, but you can also in 2024 use the help action to do that. And I think Resistance kind of sucks now in 2024. Let's look at it. Yeah, instead of getting actual resistance like you used to, you just minus the damage taken by 1d4, so Manu says Tharquin, his villain, is mainly a druid because I want him to transform into stuff. That's why I said bloody horror before. Yeah, there's also the astral forms that he can take too, which might be cool for your theme. And you can, because he's a villain and an NPC, you can maybe let him switch into a bunch of different things instead of being constricted by specifically a class like a player would need to be. So I think Guidance is the best here. We're going to take it, and that'll be our 3 cantrips. Remember that it's going to say on the spell list that we only get 2 cantrips known 2, but because we took the magician part of the primal order, we get a third one for free. And then we can prepare 4 spells. Now remember, we have Speak with Animals always prepared, so we're set there. He's a necromancer too, so yeah, it goes well with the horror part of his transformations. Yeah, nice. So animal friendship always prepared. That is nice. I think we're definitely going to want Cure Wounds. You can decide if you don't want to run up close to somebody, then instead of taking Cure Wounds, you can take Healing Word and not take Cure Wounds, but I think that's dangerous. I like to have both of them. Come on. So, just for me, they're always going to take up 2 of my prepared spells. So really what we're deciding on is 2 prepared spells. I like having both of them. I think you people who don't are crazy. But one is a ranged heal and one is a touch spell heal. So you got to be a little bit closer to use it. You out of here, Manu? Good to see you, buddy. Oh, did you send me more? Yeah, I'll read it after the stream for sure. Good night, my man. Okay, so as we continue here, we got 2 more spells that we need to pick. Being that your 2 spells that we picked so far are healing spells, and then your third that you have for free, Speak with Animals, is a utility spell, I would likely pick a damage spell, 1 damage spell that's going to be kind of our go-to, and then a combat utility spell. So for combat utility, I like either Fairy Fire or Fog Cloud. Fog Cloud is going to give everybody disadvantage, and so if you need to try to protect your party by obscuring what people can see, Fog Cloud can help you do that. Fairy Fire is going to help you see invisible creatures and also give advantage on attacks. I'm a fan of Fairy Fire. So let's take that. But your other options that you might pick, Charm Person can be helpful. Entangle can be helpful. Jump, Longstrider, they're not as good in tabletop D&D as they are in like Baldur's Gate. So I know a lot of people are going to take that off the bat, but not as good. Protection from Good and Evil, depending on what campaign you're playing, can be very good combat utility spell. But I think the one is Fairy Fire, because not only does it help us, but it helps everybody. So that's 3 prepared plus the one we always have prepared. And then we are doing lightning damage. So this is, what is this, thunder or lightning? It's thunder damage. But it also allows you to push people away from you. So I think I'm going to take Thunder Wave as my level 1 damage spell. You probably aren't going to use it that much. Those slots that you have, you're probably going to go to healing most of the time. And you're going to use your cantrips to do damage. But 2d8 thunder damage. They're pushed 10 feet away from you. It's creates a thunderous boom too. So if you need to send some sort of message, you can do so by like a signal. Instead of shooting a flaming arrow up or something like that, bang, Thunderwave will get that done as well. Okay, so those are our spells. We've got 2 level 1 spell slots, but the cantrips we can use as many times as we want. And then let's go through and finish creating our character here. So Wisdom's going to be our main score. We know we're going to be a caster. Our physical stats will change if we turn into animal forms. But I'm going to say we want a 12 in Constitution and a 12 in Dexterity. And that gives us +1s on each of those. And then we can make sure our strength doesn't give us a disadvantage. But you can dump stat if you want there. I would say the same thing with intelligence. I'm just building this as a real basic character. But if you want to dump one of those and pump up another, you can. And so this is 2 points, this is 2 points, this is 4 points, this is 4 points, right? So that's 12. And then we spent 9 already. So that's 21. So we have 5 points left, which means that we can put our charisma at a 13. Now, we can move these points around still. We need to go find a background that we like. There's a lot of good backgrounds you can take for spellcasters. If we want to maybe dip into somebody else's spell list, we get an extra spell prepared. We can take Magic Initiate. That'll give us 2 cantrips and 1 spell from any spell list that there is. So if we want, we can do that. Why don't we do that? So I think it's Acolyte. Okay, so Acolyte gives us Magic Initiate for Cleric, and we can put a point into Wisdom, Intelligence, or Charisma. Or we can put 1 point into all 3, or 2 into one and 1 into another. So we're going to put 2 into Wisdom and 1 into Charisma. And that way our Charisma turns into a 14, and we get +2 on it, and that'll help with all of our social checks. And our Wisdom turns into a 17, and that's our main spellcasting stat. So it's going to be +3 off the bat, which is the best you can get during a point buy. But it also sets us up for when we get an ability score improvement, we only need to put 1 point into it to get it to a +4 instead of a +3. So we love having our Wisdom stat up that high. Acolyter. Okay, that gives us the feat Magic Initiate Cleric. And for that, we get to pick 2 cantrips off the Cleric spell list and a spell. And so in terms of a spell, we don't have anything here that we're going to have to concentrate on. Fairy Fire is a concentrate. And Speak with Animals if we casted it too. But we can decide if we want to do that or what we're going to do here. So from the Cleric spell list, we already have Guidance as a cantrip. And then the other 2 are not on the Cleric list of cantrips. So we can take anything we want here. Toll the Dead is one of the best, damage-wise, one of the best cantrips in the game. And Spare the Dying we didn't take before, but we considered it. But it's a good way to make sure that you help keep your party alive. So let's take those 2. Spare the Dying. And Toll the Dead. Both are necromancy cantrips, interestingly enough. And so we've got those under our Magic Initiate here to remind us where we got them. But let's put them under our cantrip section as well, so we have one go-to spot where we know we have all our cantrips listed. So when we're looking for something to do, we have that available. That was weird. Okay. Now we also get to pick a spell, and that spell we can cast once per day without expending a spell slot. So we get a free cast of it, which is pretty nice. And then we can cast it another more times, depending on if we want to use our spell slots on it. So I think the easy one here for me, there's two that I could see. But the easy one here for me, I think, is Bless. You can use it to buff your entire party. Bless up to 3 creatures within range. When the target makes an attack roll, saving throw before the spell ends, they get 1d4 on it. And at low levels especially, it's really powerful. The other one that you could consider, and I think is just as powerful, is Shield of Faith. That one lasts for 10 minutes. And you can cast it as a bonus action, but it still takes up your concentration. But Shield of Faith gives you a +2 to AC or anybody else. So you can put it on your tank and have them, as long as you're concentrating it, have +2 AC while they protect you. So you can decide if you want to be more offensive or defensive. Bless is more of the offensive spell, but that's what we'll take. And so now we've got a couple of concentration spells, we got a damage, and then we've got a couple utility spells. We've got some good damage in the cantrips with Toll the Dead, Thorn Whip, and Produce Flame, and then a little bit of utility there as well. So a good little spell list that we have. Okay, let's go back to Acolyte. Okay, you get Insight and Religion as trained skills. So, Insight and Religion. You get proficiency with Calligrapher's Supplies. And then you can take all of this stuff here, or you can take 50 gold. Now, I would generally tell you to take the 50 gold, but we won't spend the time going through everything, you know? So I think it's okay just to take what it gives you if you just need a quick answer. You know what I mean? So we've got Calligrapher's Supplies. We've got a Book of Prayers. Got a Holy Symbol, which we can use as our focus. We got 10 sheets of parchment, a robe, and then our gold pieces actually go here. And every sheet has like a little bit different of a lineup, but you'll find where it goes on yours. I don't get any languages from there. That's too bad. But we'll get some from our race. And that's everything on Acolyte. Okay, so now we just need to figure out what our race is, and then we can start filling in everything. We'll be completely done with the stuff that we need to get. As a druid, our hit die is a 1d8. And our total is 1. At our first level, we're going to max it. So our hit point maximum is 9. And right now we have 9. I never liked that, both being in there. I think you can just do 9 here. And I'm sure there's a way to justify it, but then you can just right next to it, and you know your max hit points is 9. Okay, so let's go add in our stuff for what you get as a druid. Our saving throws proficiencies are intelligence and wisdom. So intelligence and wisdom. And we get to choose two: Arcana, Animal Handling, Insight, Medicine, Nature, Perception, Religion, or Survival. Well, I don't think it makes sense to have a non-survival druid. So we'll take that for one. And then our good scores are Wisdom and Charisma. So that would be the second one I would pick. Now, we got to add our Wisdom bonus already to Arcana and... was it Religion? Nature. So we don't need to pick those, but we could to pump up the scores, but we don't necessarily need to pick proficiency in those because we're already getting our wisdom bonus on it, which would be more than we would have had before. So why don't we take perception for our other one? Perception's one that's always good to have. And so these aren't trained, but I get +3 to them. And then I also get my int bonus, which is 0. So we can go through and do that in a minute because our race might change it. So here are the things that I'm proficient with. And so we'll go and we'll put that in proficiencies. Simple weapons, herbalism kit, light armor and shields. And then I didn't put this from Acolyte, but we are proficient with the calligrapher's supplies too. So those are our proficiencies. And then starting equipment: leather armor, shield, sickle, druidic focus, explorer's pack, and herbalism kit with 9 gold or 50 gold pieces. And again, you can go through and customize that. I would if it was something that I was playing, but that's up to you. So, the leather armor. Let's see what it gives us. I think it's like a 13, maybe a 12. Ooh, 11. Okay, leather armor is 11 plus dex modifier. So that'll make our armor class with a dexterity of 1, 12. Not great. Don't get hit. We're a spellcaster. We can carry a shield, so that'll up it to 14, which is nice. It gives you a +2 to your AC. So we'll keep these on the list so that we know what we have, and that way if they say, how did you calculate your AC? Well, I've got leather armor and a shield. The sickle we can put up in our weapons. So we don't need to keep it on this list. Druidic focus, quarterstaff. We do want to leave that down there so we know what our druidic focus is. Explorer's pack, herbalism kit, and 9 gold pieces. Now, if you want to know what's in the explorer's pack, you can go to the PHB. It'll tell you everything that's in there. It's stuff like rope and pythons and that kind of stuff. And you can find uses to them. It can be really helpful. People, I think, do themselves a disservice by not looking through and getting creative with the stuff that's in there. And then we already had 8 gold pieces. We have 9 left, so we'll add those in. So we got 17 gold to start, which is not bad. Okay, I guess I can't mess with that. Okay, so we'll go through and figure these out in a minute. I can tell you this, the numbers aren't going to be impressive if we have to attack with our sickle and our quarterstaff. We're going to want to be attacking with our cantrips. That's going to be the way that we do it. But we'll put it in here just in case. And I've said it a couple times now, but we still need to do it. Let's go pick a race. So I could pick something optimal, but instead, let's just roll on it. All right. Because it's more fun. Okay, Species 2024 D&D. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Perfect. Let's roll a d10 and we'll make it one of the regular ones. 2. Dragonborn. Dragonborn Druid. Okay. Alright, our movement speed is 30 feet. So that'll go up here. We have to pick what type we are. And you know me. I'm going to roll for it. No, actually, our whole theme right now is lightning. So let's pick the lightning one. So either blue or bronze. Let's do evens are blues and odds are bronze. Even. So blue, which is technically an evil dragon. So blue dragonborn. So we get the breath weapon, and ours is a lightning spell. We're going to have to edit that because it's way too small. So breath weapon. You can replace one of your attacks with the exhalation of magical energy. 15-foot cone or 30-foot line. That is 5 feet wide. Choose each time. Each creature in the area must make a dexterity saving throw. DC 8 plus your con modifier plus your proficiency bonus. And so we will put that here. Dex save DC. So our con modifier is 1, I believe. Yes. So DC 11. And that'll go up with our proficiency bonus, but not a ton. So it's going to be easy for them to make a save. On a failed save, they take 1d10 damage. And we can just say that it's lightning. On a successful save, they take half. The damage increases. You can use your breath weapon a number of times equal to your proficiency bonus. You regain all expended uses when you take a long rest. So, do we feel like that's big enough to read? Yeah, I think that's okay. We could also put it down here, but that's going to make our spell list really small. Oh no, that's actually kind of nice. Let's do that. Okay. So we also have resistance to lightning damage. Okay. We have dark vision. And then we get Draconic Flight. When you reach character level 5, you can channel Draconic magic to give yourself temporary flight as a bonus action. You can sprout wings on your back that last for 10 minutes. Because we don't get that to level 5, I'm just going to copy that. And I'll put it in up here. Draconic Flight level 5 as a reminder for me. And then here we'll put blue Dragonborn. It's weird, it doesn't have a place for size. So inspiration, you get 1 per day. No, that's humans. So we'll have to wait until the DM gives us that. Our proficiency bonus is a +2. I just know that off the top of my head. But if you go to your class here, you can see it's right here. And it'll be in the table on the book, so you can find it there. Your proficiency goes up with your class, with your character level, not your class level. So if I reach 5, but I'm 3 and 2, I still get my proficiency bonus going up to 3 in that case. So, and then I put all the equipment in there. So then we just need to fill out numbers, I think. Oh, and we got to pick a name. We're definitely going to pick a name. Okay, so our strength is 0. These are our saving throws, right? So it's just going to be our modifier unless it's marked as proficient. Our dex is a 1. Our con is a 1. Our intelligence is one of the ones that we are proficient in, but we don't have a modifier, so it's a 2. Our wisdom is one that we are proficient in, and we have a modifier, so it's going to be a 5. And our charisma is a 2. And then the rest of these will either be, well, I shouldn't say that because we've got a couple special cases. So we're going to look at what the trait is here and then just put our bonus in, and then we'll calculate when we need to calculate. So acrobatics is dex, that's a 1. Animal handling is wisdom, that's a 3. Arcana is int, which is a 0, but we get to add our wisdom modifier to it. So that's going to be a +3. That was a trait in for our class for Druid. Our strength is a 0. Our charisma is a 2, so we get a 2 in deception. Our intelligence is a 0 for history. So we are proficient in insight, and we've got a +3 modifier. So our insight's going to be a 5. I can do this and make it easier to read. Should have done that before, probably, because these numbers are very tiny. Okay, our intimidation is charisma, which is a 2. Our investigation is intelligence, which is a 0. Our medicine is wisdom, which is a 3. Nature is the same thing as arcana. We get this from our class, that we get to add our wisdom modifier to our nature checks. So that's going to be a +3. Perception is wisdom, and we're proficient, so that's a 5. Performance is charisma, and we have a 2. Persuasion is charisma, and we have a 2. We're trained in religion, but it's our intelligence bonus, so we're only going to get a +2 on that one. Sleight of hand is dexterity, so that's a 1. Stealth is dexterity, so that's a 1. And survival is wisdom, so that's a 3. So those are all our skills and saving throws. Initiative is your dexterity modifier plus any buffs that you have to it. So you can take like feats and stuff that help you with that. But for us, it's just going to be a +1 to our initiative. And, we need to figure out our bonuses. So for a sickle, I think, let's just do weapons. 2024. Okay, so, I just want the table. What an annoying table. Okay, a sickle is 1d4 slashing, and it's light. but not finesse. That's interesting. So, our attack bonus is going to be with our strength then. So we get just our proficiency bonus. So that's +2, and it's 1d4, and we don't get any buff on it because it's strength. Quarterstaff is versatile. So D8 or D10. But that is also going to be with strength. Again, we don't want to be hitting people with these. Uh, 1d8 or 1d10, sorry. Okay. So those are our weapon numbers. Then we need to figure out our spell attack bonus and spell save DC. So when we pick Magic Initiate, we get to pick what our casting modifier is for those spells. We would just make it Wisdom. It is also that for clerics, but it's going to be our highest. And in spell casting, you can read through this here to figure out what your attack bonuses and saves are. But I happen to know that it is 8 plus your proficiency modifier plus your modifier for the spells for your DC. So 8 plus 2 plus 3. Our spell save DC at level 1 is 13. And then your spell attack bonus is just those two things without an 8. So it's your proficiency bonus plus your spell casting ability modifier. So 2 plus 3, and it's +5 to attack rolls. So now when you say do a spell attack roll like Thorn Whip, you add 5 to it. When you do a spell and there's a save, it's 13. The only one that's an exception to that is your breath weapon because it comes from your race and not your class. And you can see right here we have it listed as Dex save for DC 11. And it explains how you get that too right there in the description. And so that's it. That's a level 1 character. Now we got to name it. Lightning Wanderer. Lightning Walker. That's kind of cool. Okay. So, and then what I do is I go in here and I just start picking different languages until we find one that's super cool. And then that's going to be our name. But we got to find one that's cool that we can also pronounce. You know what I mean? Like, ooh, that's kind of cool. Danish is kind of cool, but it's not 2 names. Oof, neither is Dutch. French? Nope. Oof. Everybody's got it as one word. That's not bad. Haitian Creole. So our other option is to take the one word that we use and then add a very dragonborn last name to it. Which we might do too. I promise I won't spend too long on this. It's a sickness that I have. I think it's cool and I like to do it. I don't know. Is it cool? I would love your thoughts. But I like to do it. It's a little too complicated. So is that. Don't like it. Come on, give me a cool one. For the people, not for me. Mm-hmm. Somebody save us. Oh my goodness. How do we not have a cool one? Somali's okay. It's amazing to me. Nothing. Nobody's got a cool word for lightning. I mean, what are we doing? We need to redo all of our words for lightning across the planet. Okay, so here's what we're going to do then. We're going to take the Dutch name. I think it was Dutch. This is one of the problems with it. Maybe it wasn't Dutch. Danish? Yeah. Linvander. Yeah, I'm just going to say it's Linvander. And then we're going to go Dragonborn. Yeah, I know they use clan names. Stupid AI. That's literally what I'm asking. I would go to my DM's book and find names. But this shouldn't be this hard. Yeah, what are they? Here we go. Family names. Letra. Odier is kind of cool. Let's take that one. Ooh, Redier is even cooler. Bang. And that's how you do it. That's how you make a character right there. Level 1 Druid, and our plan would be to go to level 3 and take Druid of the Land. But when we take that, to take the Temperate option, which will give us lightning spells. We can start using Wild Companion at level 2. We get our subclass at level 3. Are those the only things that we get? It looks like it. Wild Shape, Wild Companion, and then Druid subclass. And we would probably use Wild Companion more than Wild Shape. It'd be nice to have a familiar. Lots of things that you can do with them. And then we'd take Temperate Land, Shocking Grass, Sleep, Misty Step at level 3. That'd kind of be the plan for our first 3 levels, and then we'd kind of feel it out from there with the campaign on what we needed. So, that's it, baby. That's making a character. How long did it take us? 45 minutes, 50 minutes, something like that. So, I hope you enjoyed the tutorial for helping build a character. It was just a walkthrough, and if you want to steal it, because it's obviously not going to get played by me. But if you have any questions, if you're trying to build a character and you're having a hard time with anything about it, feel free to send me a DM, and I'm happy to help you with your character creation. I've built a million of them over my D&D career, and we can kind of talk about what you want to build and how you want to build it and have some fun that way. And that'll be it for a D&D Wednesday. Appreciate everybody for dropping in and hanging out. Manu was great. Good to see Dave. Good to see Mental Health Guy was here. Good to see y'all. Appreciate you guys coming through. Had fun with Tome the GM. We'll put that up as a VOD. And then talking about giving some depth to your villain, I thought went well too. So appreciate everybody for hanging out. Tomorrow is a Buffalo Sports Thursday. We're going to go a little bit earlier than normal because we have the preseason game in the morning or in the evening. So we'll stream a little bit earlier than that, and then Free for All Friday. Make sure you join us. All right, guys. Love you all. Appreciate you joining me, and hope you have a wonderful rest of your day. Peace out. Oh, and remember, if something's worth doing, it's worth doing right. Got to keep telling myself that. It's important. You know what I mean? All right, y'all. We love you. We'll see you.